Hey, we're back with the Gentlemanly Things. Thanks for sticking with us after a few weeks off. I am so excited for today's conversation to be bringing you Juan Bendana. Juan and I met in September back here in Philadelphia when he came to speak to us at EO Philadelphia. Juan is going to bring the energy. If you guys are in the mindset of thinking about New Year's resolutions, goals for 2026, if you've set goals before and not achieved them, or you have achieved them and you wonder what's next, this conversation is going to blow your mind. All right, welcome everybody to this episode of The Gentlemanly Things. I am so excited to be having this conversation today with Juan and welcome him to the show. And we're going to get into some conversation around setting some goals around New Year's and breaking through with confidence and how to actually accomplish those goals. Juan Bendana is a highly sought after speaker and behind the scenes confidence coach to the world's top performers, from Olympic athletes and Grammy artists to top CEOs and Fortune 100 leaders. He has worked with the likes of American Express, Zillow, Disney, and countless other category-leading companies. His best-selling book, Confident by Choice, has been featured in Harvard Business Review and Rolling Stone and translated into more than 4 languages. He has helped over 250,000 leaders in person and millions online level up, and is here to share how we can do the same by building unwavering confidence. He's considered by many as a walking shot of espresso, and today we find out why. So please help me welcome Juan Bendana to The Gentlemanly Things.
Dude, Brian, thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here and to chat not only all things gentlemanly, but also how we can crush it in the following year. I think there's such a exciting energy around nearing the end of the year, not just because of the holidays, not just because people take this time to reflect and look back and say, what are the wins? What are some of the losses? What are the challenges that I had? But also, like, what do I want to move toward? And what do I want to leave behind? What do I want to leave behind in 2025? What do I want to move toward in 2026? What do I want to bring along the way? So it's just such an exciting time. And I'm really excited for us to be doing this pod today and around this season, because I genuinely think it's the most pivotal time for people professionally, but also personally, to be able to not only get ahead, but really pursue the things that they want that have maybe been on the back burner. So long-winded way of saying I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. And I'm excited to have you. And we chatted after your presentation to us for a little bit. And I made the ask confidently because you had taught me that day how to be more confident, although some in my life would say I didn't need that. I always am looking to learn. One of our core values is be learned. So I was reviewing before we hopped on this call all the handwritten notes I took from your talk, and I mean it's there. Like confidence, just not everybody has it, right? I think you shared how few people have it, and how lacking it really is. And I'll talk about it. I mean, this podcast, this is season 1 of our podcast. I launched it in July. This is new space for me. And it was hard to get started, and it's still hard to keep going. So, I want more guests on it. And having you as a guest, is a big step for us. So, being able to confidently make the ask and, have it be something that you see value in means a lot to me. And I'm just excited to have this conversation, because there's a lot of tie-in of what we do at Henry Davidson along with your messaging. And I think one of the things I remember you saying is people meet your energy before they meet you. And I often say is by the time you speak, you're having a second conversation, because your clothes.
I love that.
Yeah, your clothes have already had the conversation. So maybe by the time you speak, you're having a third conversation. The clothes are 1, the energy's 2, or vice versa. And then actually getting to speak has to match all that. And I think a lot of people miss that. So
yeah, it's the littlest things that I think people don't take into account. And I think when it comes to what the biggest misconception that I had about confidence is that, and I'm sure it's similar to in your work, that confidence is sort of a destination you reach. I always thought it was a milestone. It was something you hit. Once you had it, once you found it, it was yours, which really it's more of a muscle you develop. It's something that you train. And what happens when you don't go to the gym after an extended period of time, that muscle starts to atrophy. And you saw that over the past few years. You saw that amidst the pandemic, where people that were really confident in their career, in relationships, in meeting new people, would then go out 2 years later, and that muscle hadn't been trained. And they felt like, oh my gosh, am I getting worse? Like, where did all of that confidence go? And it's like, no. It's not that you lost it. It's that you just haven't trained the muscle. And you need to get into the gym by putting yourself into experiences, into moments, starting a podcast, doing the thing that maybe isn't your zone of comfort or zone of genius, and really leaning into those things. You know, we talked about this in Philly, that like confident people, the differentiators, that instead of running away from challenges, they run toward them. You know, instead of seeing self-doubt or hesitation as a sign to stop, they see it as a signal to grow. And I think for a lot of people, you're so right. A lot of people, it's so fun to start, almost like flirting with potential. You know, it's so fun to do the vision board and to set the business plan and to set the goals. It's really hard to continue.
Yeah.
And to be doing it on day. And I'm sure you've seen this. If you haven't, after our conversation, look it up, because it's fascinating and it could be really good fuel for someone like you. Like, we're very similar in that. The statistics of podcasts, like how many episodes they get to. And I think it's something like only like 1% of, I am butchering this, but there's stats that are like only 1% of podcasts get to like episode 100 and something. 5% get to episode 70. 10% get to, and you realize that the goal isn't the problem. It's someone's commitment to it that is.
Yeah. It makes sense. And carving out the time. So I've identified the challenge for me is that I want to go through this transition. And this comes out of a book I read called 10X is Easier Than 2X. I don't know if you've read it or are familiar with it. It's based off Dan Sullivan.
Yes, I have read that actually. Like strategic coach. Yeah.
So it's part of the Dan Sullivan library. He wrote it. He co-wrote it with a psychologist. But it talks about, if you think multiplying growth by 10, you're thinking differently. And you're thinking essentially big things that you otherwise thought were impossible. And if you strive for 10, you might fall short of it, but you might fall short of it by hitting 4, versus if you strive for 2 and you fall short of 2, you're falling short at 1.5. Yeah. And which one's better, 4 or 1.5, right? And if you just think 2, that's linear growth. And you're just going to kind of keep doing the same things, and hope for either harder work or, a small expanding team, versus if you think 10, you're thinking in ways that you would not otherwise think. So that's not the key that I took out of it. The key was, if you focus on 20%, 20% of your effort should get you 80% of your results. Mm-hmm. But as you transition and you want to go to that next level, well, what got you to the current level isn't going to get you to the next level. And so the 20% that you are focused on actually becomes the 80% of your new level. And you have to let it go and find a whole new 20%. For me, this podcast, this show, is part of my new 20%. It's one of the things I really want to focus on. I want to be intentional about. I want to put the time in and do it the right way. And I think I've been doing that so far. Up to this will be episode 17, 18, somewhere in that range. But what I'm finding is I am still getting pulled back into my old 20% because I haven't set up the foundation to give coverage with my team. And I can't just say, all right, team, you're now handling all this, and I'm going to see you later. And so now we're actively in a search for a salesperson that can join my other stylist that's on my team and give them the support that I've been giving, so that I can get out of that support role and get to my new 20%. And what I discovered actually right around the time we met is I was like really struggling with like happiness. I was like, I just don't feel like, do I feel like doing this today? And then I'd have a great day. I'd be like, oh, this day was awesome. And I think you talk about some of this where I'm curious to hear your response on this. But what I've deemed it is I was doing 40%. I was doing my new 20 and my old 20. And instead of getting 80% of the results, I was getting 60% because I wasn't focused on what I should only be handling. So we did an interesting exercise in our annual plan yesterday, which we call the one thing. And we carved out my one thing is what I called it 20% pure. Be purely into my new 20%, better and better and better and better throughout the next year. And that's the transition that it's like you want to make the transition, but I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get through it. And that's then I awesome. Really kind of like nailed that down in that way that I just described. So
in addition to the podcast, what are the other core elements of that new 20% that you've defined? I'm so curious.
Yeah, no, I love that you asked that. So the clients that I work with now, I am trying to pare down to a list of 30 to 50 that meet a certain criteria that becomes like my focus when I'm doing client work. Because I only want to be doing so much client work that I can't do it all. And so I need to kind of set some boundaries and, guide of, okay, if you meet this criteria, you get to work with me. And it feels weird to say because I want to help everybody, but I can't. If I'm going to make that transition, I just can't. It's the boundaries of the clients I'm going to work with and really paring down and being super intentional about that list. Probably doing more business with maybe a quarter of the guys that I work with now. And that's really exciting to me, but it's hard to, these relationships I built over 20 years of doing this, it's hard to say, hey, you don't get to work with me anymore. You're going to work with my team. We're figuring out how to make that handoff. And, thankfully the one I'm handing off to, Mike, on my team has now been back with me again, his second go around with the company for 8 years. And a lot of the guys have met him and have started building their own relationship with him. So, it'll be that. We do want to move into new cities. So I need to explore how to open a second location. That's part of the new 20%. And then the end of it is service. I serve on EO Philly's board, and I really, really enjoy giving to that organization. That gives a lot to me. I enjoy being around other entrepreneurs that I'm learning from and growing myself, and more service like that. So I'm going to be stepping into the role in another association, the Custom Tailors and Designers Association, which is, here's a fun fact for you, the oldest continually active trade association in our country. It goes all the way back to, I want to say, the 1860s or 70s.
Wow.
And I have a list of every president that's run the organization since that time. In January, I become the next president of that for 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I've been doing a lot with them to try to bring a lot of EOS principles. We run on EOS with our business, and I've trying to bring a lot of what we've learned and seen traction build with to that organization to try to give them some revival, because it's become a little bit of a smaller group compared to what it used to be. And really we should be the authority in the industry of custom clothing. So I'll run that for 2 years, but then mentoring, other nonprofit work, that's stuff that really excites me. So that's going to be, those 4 components will be my new 20%.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
I just got to do 20, not 40.
Yeah. It's hard to let go of something that used to be effective because your only context of that action was that it worked.
Right. Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
We did the thing and it yielded results. And it's hard to, we sort of have this like cognitive dissonance when we look at this behavior activity that we used to do. And it's like, but that's what got me here. And to dissociate that and say, yeah, but you're going to have to do something different in order to get to the next level. That is sort of setting sails in navigated waters to say like, oh, I don't know. Well, I feel like I'm starting from scratch now because I don't even have any context of what worked like I did in the past, so that's, yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no. So I think getting to this point with the confidence that I had, it's very different than starting from zero, which is what I did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Opening a new market. We have a brand established in Philadelphia. Actually, we draw from upstate New York to Washington, D.C., Jersey Shore, all the way out to Chicago. Then spotted beyond that from guys that have moved away and come back or traveled to Philly. But anytime somebody like drives 3 hours to see me for 3 to 4 fittings, like it's super humbling. But I would have never had that 20 years ago, 19 years ago, 18 years ago. So we turned 20 this year. It's a huge milestone.
Massive.
And we have aggressive growth goals. So, to make sure we get to those, I have to let go of what got me here, because it's not going to be what gets me there. Breaking through that glass ceiling, per se.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, but exciting. It's exciting stuff. And coming out of a 2-day planning, it's, my integrator he's fractional. So he does this for our company as well as a couple other companies, which I love, because it gives me perspective, right? I'm so buried in mine. I don't see the blind spots. I don't see the good as well as the bad. And sometimes you need to be reminded of the good, right? You mentioned everybody has a propensity to think bad.
Yeah.
And before he left town last night, he said, you're really building something special here. And I said, I appreciate that. I think we are too. And I'm excited for where we're going and the team we have and the plan that's coming along. So, we'll see. It's going to take commitment. The hardest thing for me is, I have things to look forward to. That's another thing I took away from your talk in September. My wife and I are going on our honeymoon for 3 weeks to start the year.
Oh my gosh. What a time for the honeymoon. Where are you going?
We're headed to New Zealand. And we wanted to wait till we got married last April, but we wanted to wait till it was summertime there. So we'll spend New Year's there, have one of the first New Year's in the world, which is really exciting. I've spent New Year's in other cities, maybe like 4 or 5 cities around the world, which is, it's always cool to see something different and the way people do things differently. And then like just kind of be removed from everybody, who's celebrating. It's like, I keep telling everybody, we'll be having dinner the next day by the time you guys hit midnight, which is a wild concept. Cool. We'll start there. We're going to road trip all the way to the south end of the South Island and then come home. And then I've got 2 more trips back to back. So the hardest thing for me is like saying, all right, guys, we just made this huge plan. Now you're on your own. They're not really on their own, but for 3 weeks, I'm really, one of the first times in 20 years, trying to not touch business at all.
Wow.
Because you only get one honeymoon, I hope.
Yes.
That's got me excited about what's coming up, but it all rolls into everything else. It's contagious.
Yeah, it is. And it gives you the energy to be able to then deploy in your business with your team. And honestly, going for 3 weeks, even though you know the team will be good and they're trained and they've got it. It also is kind of this cosign for them and a signal of you saying, I trust you to get to handle it all. Yeah. And that, even though you don't explicitly say it, and I'm sure you have, like, I trust, but there's no better trust builder than to take an action as intense as a New Zealand January trip after the holidays, So that's really, I think that's really cool. And I think it's going to build like a deeper sense of onus on leadership to say like, oh, I really have to step up here. I really have to be resourceful. I have to answer the questions. I need to solve the problems, put out the fires. And that growth, a lot of times I see leaders like kind of, I don't want to say sabotage because that's an aggressive word, but almost hinder the growth of the people that they lead because they don't take actions and make moves that will act as a forcing mechanism for their team to grow, if that makes sense. Like what you're essentially doing. Like, I think that's awesome.
It like taking the training wheels off.
Yes. Yeah. And go down the hill. Like, just try it. Just go for a ride. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is I love to travel. So I've disappeared from the business for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This year, actually, I was out of the business cumulatively about a full quarter of the year. And we still grew. We're going to grow about 20% this year. On top of that, no other staff changes in terms of capacity and people. So
wow,
it's the power of EOS and traction. It's the power of the right people in the right seats and all those tools, and then empowering them. There's a saying in EOS that says, "Let go of the vine." Right, for leaders, you have to let go of the vine. You have to trust your team, and that's part of why I love leaving. One, I'm growing myself by going and experiencing something new. And I bring that back to the team. But while I'm gone, it's me showing them, hey, I trust you guys. You got this. And I try to balance that with being cognizant of making sure that they're not overloaded and over capacity to the point of burnout. So I'm always sensitive to that. But at the same time, I'm a big believer that you grow through experience and you grow out of your comfort zone. So there's you were talking about that earlier. There's a meme I found years ago when I used to spend a lot more time on social media than I do today. But there's like kind of a circle and it says, this is your comfort zone here. And then there's a small circle out here. And it's like, that's where the magic happens. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
But like wholeheartedly believe your comfort zone expands when you spend time outside of it. And then it encompasses, and the more you can continue to expand it, the more that confidence comes through. And I've been practicing that for 10, 15 years. But it's funny because I never had that as a kid. And I think hearing your story, that's something we had in common is I was a shy kid. You know, I cried every day when my mom dropped me off at preschool and I hugged her leg to the point they had to put somebody special just to deal with me. And I was social, but I wasn't the one to say, put your attention on me. And when I started learning how to dress and I started learning image and the importance of image and the confidence to know I was putting the right garments together with the right quality, the right construction, the right colors and pattern combination. And then people reflect that to you. Our corporate guarantee, I don't know if I shared this with you. Our corporate guarantee is compliments guaranteed. Do you remember us talking about that?
That's amazing. Yeah. I love that.
And I can't guarantee clothing's going to last you forever, but I can guarantee how you're going to feel when a complete stranger takes time out of their day to tell you that you look good or to tell you that you're wearing something amazing that stood out to them that they had to stop and tell you. And it happens. We guarantee it because over 20 years, so many guys have come back and said, oh, nobody's ever commented on my clothes. And the first day I wore your stuff, 3 people said something. And so I know it because I lived through that transition as I started my business. But I'm curious how you made the transition, right? So I think you talked about being a shyer guy in high school, middle school, and give us a little background about you and some of the transition you went through there.
Yeah, I think another misconception that I had as a kid was this idea that courage or being that dot outside of the circle that you talked about was something that you did once and then it would guarantee sort of success for future moments that were similar. Meaning like people, and I think there's this concept, this notion that's like step outside your comfort zone and then it'll expand. It's like, yes. And if you continue to do things that are at that standard, at that level, because what most people do that I've found is they step outside of their comfort zone once. It's terrifying. They get judged, they're criticized, and then they step right back in. And they're like playing that game, like the 1 foot in, like they're doing that thing. They're like doing that dance and they never actually grow. And so that's why and I think the word that you used nailed it, which was practice. Practicing courage is different than being courageous. Doing something uncomfortable, practicing discomfort is different than getting into discomfort, because you could give one presentation and be afraid of public speaking. After that presentation, you're still afraid of public speaking, by the way.
Yep.
Like you're still, so as a kid, I was, I was super self-conscious, mostly because of weight. I was always the overweight kid, like 20, 30 pounds. So I could always hide it well, and I really wanted to be accepted by everyone. And so but I didn't really fit into one group. I wasn't really a sports kid. I wasn't really a theater kid. I wasn't a media arts kid. So because I didn't fit into any group, I sort of became this chameleon that could fit into all of them. Mm-hmm. And I would shapeshift and I would hang out. I literally, in high school, I was friends with the soccer and football guys. I was then friends with the drama kids. I was friends with the kids in photography. I taught photography. I was friends with the people in media arts. I was friends with the break dancers. True story. I could not dance to save my life, but I was friends with all of them because I could kind of chameleon into those different groups. And basically after a breakup with someone that I thought was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. And, a lot of times when we're kids, we tie our confidence to a relationship. And if that relationship ends, then our confidence kind of exits with it. And I turned to food and had binge eating disorder. The whole thing, was like 75, 80 pounds overweight. And then food was sort of something I became numb to. So then I turned to alcohol and I was drinking, 1 day a week and then 2 days a week and then 4 days a week. And then, it's country night on Tuesdays. So I guess I got to drink on Tuesdays too. And Thursdays, pub night at college. So I guess I got to do that as well. So I was drinking Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and then Sundays. And that ended really with me being taken to the hospital in an ambulance, coughing up blood, waking up in a hospital bed, being like, where am I? And there was so many moments that sort of culminated in this, like, something needs to change now. And I realized that I needed to, my version of discomfort was discipline. What was really uncomfortable for me was waking up at the same time every day, was getting dressed in real people clothes in the morning, and not just being in sweatpants all day and rolling out of bed and thinking that there is no context switch between like real world clothes, like dressing for success, even if that success is at home. So those little changes that I started to make started to compound on each other. And I realized that courage, confidence, discipline, discomfort, all of those things are practices that you have to do. They never go away. Like things don't get easier. You just get better at handling hard. Like this morning, no part of me wanted to get in the cold plunge at all. It's so nice here in Florida. It was beautiful out. I went on a run. It's sunny. I was like sweating. I was like, oh, this is great. And getting in that tub, I've had it for about a year and a half now. Every single morning, it does not get easier. I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. And you got to kind of talk yourself off the ledge of saying like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. You have done harder things. And what's crazy is that when you go for that little dot outside of your comfort zone, when you go for that thing, it actually shows you that you're more capable than you thought. And if you can handle that thing, you can kind of handle anything else that comes. That's why I'm such a big proponent of working out and exercising. Like, I think it is the unlock for confidence. And I think like dressing well is also one of those pieces, because if you do, it sort of shows you and gives you proof that you can do hard things, that you're put together, that you're, so I think a big part of confidence actually comes down to giving yourself proof that you are the person that you say you are. If you want to be successful, what do successful people do? They wake up early. They get after the hard goals that they have. They probably exercise. They probably eat healthy. They probably get dressed well. They probably connect with friends. It's not really a secret. It's just doing those things that for a lot of people it can get in the way, and it's hard. It's hard.
Hey, if you're enjoying this conversation with Juan as much as I am, you are not going to want to miss next week, where we wrap up the second half of our breakthroughs about setting goals, accomplishing goals, the way we see ourselves, and really changing lifestyles. Anything you've thought up to this point, leave some comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe to us on your favorite streaming platform and leave us a nice 5-star review. It really helps us to get found more and spread this great information to the people who really can benefit from it. We will continue and pick up with Juan next week. This has been The Gentlemanly Things. I'm your host, Brian Lipstein, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the second half of this conversation. See you on the other side.